Imagine a completely illiterate man, someone who has literally never read a single page of text in his entire life.
Right.
And somehow, he gets crowned the ultimate intellectual and spiritual master of his entire era. I mean, it sounds impossible, right? Like a complete paradox.
Yeah, it sounds like a fairy tale, honestly.
But in the history of Zen Buddhism, that actually happened. There was this man named Hunang, and he became the sixth patriarch. And it wasn't by, studying ancient scrolls or anything.
No, not at all. He mastered a completely different type of literacy.
Exactly.
He was basically a master of observation. He understood that the deepest truths aren't necessarily found in the written word at all. They're actually broadcasting all around us constantly if we just know how to translate them.
And that concept, that translation, is exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive. We are looking at this profound, honestly kind of radical philosophical framework called reading the book without words.
It's a fascinating concept.
It really is.
Yeah.
It comes from a translated 2014 essay by an author named Suifeng, and the source material is this really wild blend.
Yeah, it pulls from a lot of different disciplines.
Right. It takes ancient Zen wisdom, and then it layers it with established psychological phenomena, and even brings in some highly debated interpretations of quantum mechanics.
Which is a huge swing.
Huge swing.
Yeah.
And it does all of this to basically answer one crucial question. How does our internal state actually dictate the external reality we experience?
It's an incredibly ambitious text, to say the least, because, Shuifeng isn't just offering advice on how to be a more positive person.
Right. It's not a self-help pamphlet.
Exactly. He is proposing a literal mechanics of perception. The essay argues that we are constantly misinterpreting the feedback we get from the world.
Because we don't realize everything is a mirror.
Yes. We fail to realize that everything we encounter is operating as a very specific kind of mirror, reflecting us back.
And I can honestly say that by the end of this deep dive, you might completely rethink how you handle criticism, or even how you process praise, and how you approach your most frustrating daily interactions.
It really reframes everything.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the philosophy, we first have to define what this mysterious book actually is.
Right.
According to the text, Shufeng categorizes human information consumption into 3 distinct types of books.
Yeah, and the first type is incredibly straightforward. It's the book with words.
Which is exactly what it sounds like.
Right. This is your morning newspaper, an online journal, academic papers, or just the novel sitting on your nightstand. It is information that is strictly encoded in literal text.
Okay, so that's the first one. Then we move to the second type, which the text calls the book with symbols.
Which broadens the scope quite a bit.
Yeah, we are moving beyond the alphabet now. This includes things like architecture, sculptures, paintings, music.
The information is definitely there, but it requires a bit more interpretation of those human-made symbols.
Right. But then we get to the third type, and this is where Shufeng focuses his entire philosophy. He calls it the book without words.
And this encompasses literally everything in nature.
Everything. It is the raw phenomena of the world, the weather, a blossoming tree, and most importantly for this essay, the unfiltered behavior of human beings.
What's fascinating here is the hierarchy the author establishes.
Yeah, it completely flips our usual assumptions.
Exactly, because in modern society, we tend to revere the book with words. We think, someone who reads dense academic theory is reaching the absolute pinnacle of intellectual achievement.
Right, the person surrounded by library books is the smart one.
But Shufeng's text flips that completely upside down. He argues that the book with words is actually the simplest, lowest form of learning.
Wow.
Yeah. And the book without words, the raw reality, is the most profound and difficult to master.
I have to admit, that feels really counterintuitive.
How so?
Well, I mean, reading a dense philosophical textbook just feels significantly harder than, like, looking at a tree or watching a crowd of people in a park.
It feels harder because it requires specialized decoding. But think about the actual mechanism of a textbook.
Right.
A book with words is fundamentally pre-digested information.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, an author has already done the heavy lifting. They observed the world, filtered out the noise, synthesized the patterns, and then packaged their conclusions into neat, easily consumable sentences.
So they're basically handing you a finished product.
Exactly. But the book without words, reality itself, is raw, unorganized data.
Ah, right. The textbook tells you what to think about the data, but reality forces you to do the synthesis yourself.
Precisely. And the source states that individuals operating at a lower spiritual nature rely heavily on books with words because they require that pre-existing structure.
They need someone else to tell them what things actually mean.
Right. But those with what the text calls a high spiritual nature, which it literally compares to Buddhas, gods, or celestial beings, they can read the raw phenomena of the world directly.
They don't need a translator.
No translator needed. They can just look at an interaction between two people and instantly understand the underlying psychological and spiritual mechanisms at play.
Which brings us right back to Huning, that illiterate Zen patriarch I mentioned at the start.
The ultimate reader of the book without words.
Exactly. Because he couldn't rely on the crutch of predigested written words, he was forced to read the raw data of reality. I like to think of it as the ultimate difference between having cosmic street smarts versus traditional book smarts.
That's a great way to put it.
Because you can memorize every single map of a city, right?
Yeah.
But navigating the actual shifting terrain on the ground is a completely different skill set.
And that map metaphor is perfect because a map is just a representation. The territory is the reality. Hunan was reading the territory.
Right, but that leaves a pretty massive logistical hurdle for the rest of us.
Yeah, how do we actually do it?
Exactly. How exactly does one read a book that has no pages? If you and I want to practice this, what are we actually looking for when we step out the front door?
Well, the author provides a methodology for that. And it really hinges on the relationship between what is visible and what is invisible.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, reading the book without words means observing phenomena to understand essence. A phenomena is just an outward expression or behavior.
Like someone yelling or laughing.
Right. While the essence is the internal natural structure driving that behavior.
And the source uses a couple of incredibly vivid, like everyday sensory analogies to explain this dynamic.
Yes, the smell analogies.
They are so good. So think about someone who just ate an entire bulb of raw garlic. Or, someone with terrible bad breath.
Usually they have absolutely no idea.
Exactly. They are walking around completely oblivious to their own scent. But everyone else in the room, they pick up on it the second that person opens their mouth.
It's undeniable.
Right. Or, to use my personal favorite example from the text, the durian fruit.
Ah, yes. For those who haven't encountered it, the durian is notorious for its overwhelming pungent smell.
It is unmistakable. You don't need to cut open a durian to know what it is. You don't need a label on it. The smell travels across a room and just announces its presence.
And the text uses these smells as metaphors for human essence.
Because an essence cannot be contained indefinitely.
Exactly. The core rule Shuefeng establishes is that the essence is revealed from the phenomenon.
So the invisible garlic on the breath, or the internal structure of the durian, that is the essence.
And the smell hitting your nose is the phenomenon.
Got it.
So when we apply this to human interaction, the author argues that a person's internal spiritual structure will inevitably leak out through what they say and do.
But wait, recognizing the essence of a durian is easy because a piece of fruit isn't actively trying to deceive you.
That's very true.
What happens when a human being is putting up a front? I mean, people are incredibly skilled at masking their true intentions or pretending to be something they aren't.
And that is the exact friction the text explores next. Shuefeng insists that the mask eventually slips, especially under pressure.
Because you can't fake essence forever.
Right. You cannot permanently project a phenomenon that contradicts your internal essence. And to illustrate this, the source shares this brilliant historical anecdote about two famous figures in Chinese history.
Yes, the scholar Su Dongpo and the Zen master Foyan. This story is fantastic.
It really perfectly captures the whole philosophy.
So Su Dongpo is this highly intellectual scholar, and he has a bit of an ego on him.
Just a bit.
Yeah, he's constantly trying to get the upper hand on Master Foyan. He basically wants to prove he is the smarter, more enlightened of the two.
It is the classic dynamic of the academic trying to outwit the practitioner.
Right, so one day, they are meditating together in a temple. After a long session of sitting in silence, Master Foyan opens his eyes, looks over at Su Dongpo, and says, "Looking at you sitting there, you look just like a statue of the Buddha."
Which is an incredibly profound compliment. He is acknowledging Dongpo's spiritual presence.
But Su Dongpo, always looking for a weakness, sees an opportunity to score a point.
Of course he does.
He looks back at Master Foyan and says, "Well, looking at you sitting there, you look like a heap of cow dung."
An incredibly blunt insult. completely unprovoked.
and fully intended to shatter the master's peace. But Master Foyne doesn't react.
Not at all.
He doesn't defend himself, he doesn't get angry. He simply smiles, nods, and remains entirely silent.
Which, in Dompo's mind, registers as a massive victory.
Oh, he is thrilled. He thinks he just won the ultimate verbal sparring match and left the great master completely speechless.
He's probably so proud of himself.
He practically runs home to find his younger sister, Su Xiaomei, who is famously sharp and intuitive. He recounts the entire exchange to her, fully expecting her to congratulate his quick wit.
But she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
She completely dismantles his perceived victory. She listens to the story and just delivers the ultimate punchline.
It's so good.
She tells her brother, "You have been utterly defeated today. Foyin sees a Buddha in you because he has Buddha in his own heart. You see cow dung in him because you have cow dung in your heart."
It is such a devastating realization for the scholar,
Total ego destruction.
and it establishes a very stark psychological rule for you, the listener. The text argues that a person who is filled with love will inherently feel nature's love and project that onto others.
Right.
But a person who lacks love internally cannot perceive it externally, no matter how much beauty you put in front of them.
And the author draws a remarkably hard line here. He says, offering genuine compliments and seeing the good in others is proof that you possess a rich, beautiful soul.
While mocking and criticizing.
Yeah, mocking, criticizing, and constantly insulting others is undeniable proof of an impoverished, ugly soul. Your judgment of the world is just a confession of your internal state.
I have to play devil's advocate for a second, though.
Go for it.
That is a very absolute way to view the world. I mean, when someone lashes out at us in traffic or a coworker leaves, like a passive-aggressive comment on a project, it is deeply ingrained in our modern psychology to offer grace.
Right, the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. We tell ourselves, oh, they must be stressed about a deadline, or they're probably going through a tough time at home. We categorize it as a situational lapse, not a permanent reflection of their soul.
That is our cultural instinct, yes.
Yeah.
But Shui Feng's philosophy completely rejects the bad day defense.
Interesting.
Yeah, the text doesn't leave room for situational nuance. It relies on a very rigid view of essence.
It certainly does. The source uses some rather blunt imagery to hammer this point home. It states that a flower will always emit fragrance, regardless of the environment it is placed in. And dog droppings will always emit a stench, regardless of their surroundings. You can move the droppings into a beautiful palace, and they will still smell terrible.
Because the environment does not alter the fundamental essence of the object.
Right.
And Shui Feng takes this even further with another analogy. He writes that flies find you disgusting because they themselves are disgusting, being drawn to decay.
Wow.
And butterflies find you beautiful because they are beautiful, being drawn to nectar.
I mean, I appreciate the vividness of the text, but comparing a grumpy coworker to dog droppings or flies feels a bit abrasive.
The imagery is intentionally provocative. It's meant to break through our defensive rationalization.
That makes sense.
If we want a more sophisticated analogy, think of external validation as a corrupted compass.
Okay, I like that.
If you are navigating a forest and your compass has a magnet glued to the side of it, the needle is never going to point true north.
It's only ever going to point to its own internal distortion.
Exactly. The text is arguing that people who constantly criticize are operating with a corrupted compass. When they insult you, they aren't providing an objective geographic reading of your flaws.
They're simply showing you the strength of the distortion in their own minds.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. So, if human behavior is fundamentally just a projection of internal state, how does that mechanism affect our broader perception of reality?
Well, the source doesn't stop at interpersonal conflict.
Right, it zooms out. It introduces a fascinating parable to show how this works on a wider scale.
The story of the painter and the mirror of public opinion.
Yes. So an artist finishes a painting. He is proud of his work, but he wants to gauge the objective quality of it.
Naturally.
So on the first day, he takes the painting down to a busy public square. He sets it up with a brush and some ink, and he leaves the sign that reads, "Please point out any faulty strokes in this painting."
So he is providing a specific negative lens through which the public should view his work.
And the public obliges. At the end of the day, the artist returns to find his painting completely ruined.
Oh, no.
Every single brushstroke, every color choice has been circled or crossed out by a passerby who found a flaw. The artist is psychologically devastated. He goes home, unable to sleep, questioning his entire career.
But the next morning, He decides to run the experiment again, altering only one variable.
Right. He paints the exact same picture. It is a perfect replica. He takes it to the exact same public square with the exact same brush and ink.
But this time he changes the sign.
Exactly. It now reads, "Please point out the superb artistry of this painting."
He changes the expectation of the observer.
And the result is a complete reversal. At the end of the day, the painting is covered in marks again, but this time, the public has highlighted every stroke as a stroke of genius.
They praise the elegance, the composition, the color theory.
Everything. The artist walks away with a profound realization. The objective quality of the paint on the canvas never changed.
No, the physical object was identical.
The good or bad of the painting was determined entirely by the mental state of the people looking at it. Beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder.
It perfectly illustrates how expectation and internal state dictate perception.
Yeah.
If you look for flaws, your reality will be constructed entirely of flaws. If you look for beauty, your reality will be beautiful. But the source material takes a massive, highly controversial leap right after this parable.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Shuafeng doesn't just present this as a nice psychological metaphor.
No, he takes it literal.
The author introduces specific scientific concepts to argue that this is a literal physical reality. First, he points to quantum mechanics, claiming that the movements of fundamental particles are decided by the observer's consciousness.
Which is a very specific interpretation of a real physical concept known as the observer effect, or wave function collapse.
Right, the whole double-slit experiment thing.
Yeah. In quantum mechanics, observing or measuring a particle forces it out of a state of probability and into a definite state. Now, physicists have debated for decades whether human consciousness plays a role in that collapse, or if it is just the mechanical act of measurement.
But the text bypasses that debate entirely.
Completely. Shuifeng takes this complex physics principle and applies it literally to human consciousness, arguing that our minds are actively forcing the universe into specific states.
And the author leans even harder into this idea by bringing up Dr. Masaru Emoto's famous water crystal experiments.
Ah, yes, the water crystals.
So Emoto was a Japanese researcher who hypothesized that human intention could physically alter the molecular structure of matter.
He basically tried to quantify the painter's parable using frozen water.
Precisely. So his methodology involved taking pure water, exposing it to different emotional environments, and then freezing it to examine the ice crystals under a microscope.
So what did he do?
Well, before freezing a sample, Emoto would expose the water to positive stimuli. He would have people project feelings of love and gratitude toward the water, or he would play classical music, or even just tape positive words to the glass.
And according to his findings, when that water froze, it formed perfectly symmetrical, incredibly complex, and beautiful crystalline structures.
Like snowflakes.
Right. But the control group, the negative exposure, yielded a starkly different visual result.
A complete mess. When the water was exposed to chaotic environments, hateful words, or destructive imagery, the resulting ice crystals didn't form symmetry at all. They froze into ugly, irregular, disjointed blobs.
Now, it is very important to note that Emoto's experiments have been heavily criticized by the broader scientific community.
Yeah, for lacking rigorous double-blind controls, right?
Exactly. But we aren't here to endorse the science. The validity of the physics or the water crystals isn't the point of our deep dive. The point is how the author Shuifeng utilizes Emoto's framework.
Right, it's about the philosophical application.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Shuifeng uses these experiments to build a staggering philosophical claim. He argues that your internal state, your love, your hate, your judgment, isn't just passively reacting to the world.
It's an active force.
It is an active, creative force.
It means the book without words isn't a static novel we are just passively reading.
Not at all.
According to this philosophy, it is a living document that we are constantly co-authoring with our own mindset. Our internal state is actively structuring the reality we walk through.
Which forces a very difficult question onto the listener.
Which is?
Well, if the world is this incredibly sensitive, malleable mirror reflecting our essence back at us, how are we supposed to navigate daily life?
Oh, especially when we are constantly bombarded by the external judgment of other people.
People whose own mirrors are distorted.
Right. The source approaches this danger by exploring a well-documented psychological concept known as the Pygmalion effect, or the Rosenthal effect.
This principle states that individuals will naturally alter their behavior to align with the expectations placed upon them.
The original studies on this in the 1960s were fascinating. Researchers basically lied to teachers.
Yeah, they told teachers that certain randomly selected students in their classrooms were hidden intellectual bloomers.
Even though they were just average students.
Right. Despite having no actual advantage, those specific students showed significantly greater IQ gains by the end of the year.
Because the teacher's internal expectations subtly changed how they interacted with the students.
And the students unconsciously conformed to that new positive reality.
But that same mechanism has a dark side.
A very dark side.
The text warns heavily about the trap of external validation. If we listen to the negative comments and judgments others place upon us, we run the risk of internalizing them.
We allow ourselves to be dragged into their corrupted reality.
Exactly. If you accept a critic's judgment that you are a failure, the Pygmalion effect suggests you will unconsciously start acting like one.
Because you are absorbing their essence. To go back to the story of Sudongkwa, if you internalize someone's unprovoked insult, you're essentially agreeing to carry their cow dung for them.
That is a brilliant way to put it. And this leads to what I think is the most radical, liberating advice in the entire essay.
It's very countercultural.
Schwiffing lays out a very clear set of rules for handling feedback. He writes that if someone points at you and accuses you of being mentally disordered, you should not get defensive. You should not get upset.
What should you do?
You should just smile.
Why? Because the very act of the unprovoked attack is the phenomenon that reveals their essence.
Yes,
The fact that they are lashing out proves that they are the ones who are disturbed.
exactly. They are just a fly doing what a fly does, drawn to negativity. But the rule applies to positive feedback too, which is much harder to accept.
It really is.
The text warns that if someone praises you and calls you a saint, you must not let your ego inflate. You shouldn't become blindly proud.
Because their ability to recognize the saintly qualities in you simply proves that they have a beautiful, saintly soul.
Right, they are the butterfly drawn to nectar,
It requires a complete detachment from the social feedback loop.
which is so hard to do.
It is. You insulate yourself from the crushing weight of insults, but you also have to cut off the intoxicating high of praise. You recognize that other people's opinions of you are rarely about you at all.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a lot of ground today, from the illiterate patriarch who mastered observation to the smell of the durian
The painter's shifting reality.
and the philosophy of water crystals. How do we synthesize all of this for the person listening right now?
The ultimate synthesis of Xu Feng's essay is a call for profound self-commitment.
Okay.
The author argues that the only way to truly live an authentic life is to commit entirely to your own internal compass and ruthlessly ignore the judgments of the outside world.
You have to stop reading the messy, distorted books with words that other people are constantly trying to write about your character.
Yes. By detaching from their corrupted mirrors, you are finally free to observe reality as it actually is. You are finally reading the book without words.
Wow.
And it's worth noting that the author mentions having written over 100 articles on these revelations. This isn't just a casual thought experiment for him.
It's a life's work.
It is a massive, expansive philosophy designed for ultimate self-liberation.
It truly takes the power out of the hands of the critics and places it entirely back into your own.
Absolutely.
So the next time you face a harsh critic at work or even receive a glowing compliment from a loved one, I want you to remember Su Dongpo.
Remember the painter in the square.
Yes, you are simply looking at a reflection of the other person's heart. You do not have to carry their cow dung, and you do not have to let their praise dictate your worth.
I'd like to leave you with one final, provocative thought to ponder, building right on the author's philosophical use of science.
Let's hear it.
We discuss Masaru Emoto's experiment, where human emotion was said to physically alter the structure of freezing water.
Making it perfectly symmetric with love or a chaotic blob with hate.
Right. Well, considering the biological fact that the adult human body is roughly 60% water,
Oh, wow.
what physical impact is your own internal silent monologue having on your physical form right at this very moment?
That is a staggering thought to end on. If our thoughts can theoretically warp reality in a petri dish, what are they doing to the vessel we live in?
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the book without words. Keep looking past the surface phenomena, keep questioning the reflections you see, and keep seeking out the fascinating essence of your daily life. Until next time, remember, the mirror is never quite as objective as it seems.